Okay, everybody. Got Michael Gladkoff, is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's right,
Gladkoff,
yeah.
To speak to us tonight about, what was it? Figures for Freedom?
I call it Figures for Freedom, yeah.
Okay.
And just a bit about myself. I've been a writer, editor for over 20 years, and I've written for executives, politicians, government, education, and part of that is speech writing. So tonight I talk about speech writing, but also give you some ideas about campaign slogans and persuasive language in general that we can use in the Libertarian Party. So it should be helpful.
Everyone?
Thanks. Yeah, I call this presentation Figures for Freedom. It's about how to promote freedom using persuasive language. Language that really changes people's perceptions, gets them emotionally involved. And these techniques have been proven. They're used by advertising agencies. Some of the top campaigns by Apple and other top corporations use these ideas to get people to remember their slogans, their ideas, and take action. So I want to start out, first of all, by giving an example. Do you remember this one?
Yeah.
Slip, slop, slap. That's from 1981. It was a highly effective advertising campaign for people to change their habits around the sun. And it led to a very great reduction in skin cancer in Australia. And one of the reasons is because it uses actually three ideas, concepts that I will talk about tonight. I'll tell you about two of these. But it was so effective that now people have low vitamin D levels. Yes. So that's also a problem. But it did effectively bring down the skin cancer rates, especially in younger people that started adopting those ideas. So it's based on figures of speech. Now in history, figures of speech have been started to be used during the Greek democracy about 2,500 years ago, when people wanted to express their ideas in the forum and promote their political ideas. And these were cataloged or categorized by the Greek philosophers. One was Aristotle, who wrote a book called Rhetoric by Aristotle. And I read it so you don't have to. He talks about some of these ideas in his book, but it's really the basis of the persuasion in Western civilization, is Aristotle's book on rhetoric. So the two main types of figures of speech are schemes and tropes. Now schemes are a way of arranging words in certain orders, in certain ways that make them more effective, more memorable, more persuasive. And you can arrange them by repetition, balance, and change in word order. And tropes are a bit different. Tropes are things like metaphors. Now, trope is something like a metaphor when Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage." That's a metaphor, but that's a different concept. That's changing the meaning of a word to mean something else. But it's also very persuasive. But tonight I'll be focusing on a few of the schemes that you can use in your presentations or campaigns or whatever you want to persuade people about.
Irish farmer and super salad.
Now tonight I'll cover 8 of these figures of repetition. These are schemes of language. Alliteration, anadiplosis, anaphora, assonance, epistrophe, epizeuxis, polyptoton, and tricolon. So at the end of this evening, you'll all be experts in these techniques, and you'll be able to use them effectively for the Libertarian Party to win at the next election. So first one, alliteration. This is when you repeat the initial consonant letters or sounds in at least 2 different words in successive sentences, clauses, or phrases.
Comic book character names.
Exactly, yeah. Or brand names. So this is Barry Goldwater, who ran against Kennedy in 1960. Ran against Johnson in 1964, and he was sort of the leader of the conservative movement back then. And he said, "We are plotting at a pace set by centralized planning, red tape, rules without responsibility. regimentation without recourse. So he's using the P sound repeatedly and then the R sound repeatedly to make it more effective. And that was from his famous speech during his campaign.
Did that work, Nick?
Excuse me?
Did that work?
He lost now. But there were other reasons for that, because they said he would start a nuclear war, so that was one of the reasons.
Did he alliterate that? Yes, that's right.
Another example is Charlton Heston, who used one in a speech at Harvard University. And he said, by daring to put on parchment what our founding fathers felt, deep in their hearts, a long, silent soul of liberty rose up from a commoner's dream to become every man's birthright. So he uses the P sound, the F sound, and the S sound just to make it more memorable, more persuasive, more effective.
Also said, soil and green is people.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
What a memorable thing. Soil and green is
It's people, yeah.
You haven't seen soil and green?
So, as I said earlier, these techniques are used in advertising. So the top agencies in the world, the top brand names, they use these very effectively. So Breitling watches, performance, prestige, passion for innovation. Toyota, today, tomorrow, Toyota, they're using it. And a lot of brand names, Coca-Cola, Kit Kat, PayPal, Krispy Kreme, TED Talks, they all use the technique because it's very effective. Also book titles like Pride and Prejudice, a lot of book titles from the 1800s use this technique to be more memorable. Next one is anadiplosis. Now this one's not used as much, but it is very effective. And this is Aristotle. Remember, he was the author of the book on rhetoric. He said masculine republics give way to feminine democracies, and feminine democracies give way to tyranny. So he's connecting the words. When you use the ending word at the beginning of the next phrase or clause, that's anadiplosis. Another example, Margaret Thatcher. Without a healthy economy, we can't have a healthy society, and without a healthy society, the economy won't stay healthy for long. So she's tying that together with that phrase, healthy society. And another one from V for Vendetta, strength through purity, purity through faith.
Could a veal still a painting?
Yeah. Lovely.
There you go.
And another example of anadiplosis from Judge Clarence Thomas of the Supreme Court. If you lie, you will cheat. If you cheat, you will steal. If you steal, you will kill. So he's tying those together, those three phrases, as an example of anadiplosis. And again, from the advertising world, now advertising agencies pay millions of dollars for people to come up with these, but we could do it just as effectively for the Libertarian Party. Kleenex Ultra softness is all you feel. And a shave this close used to take guts, today it takes gel. Gel makes a difference.
Okay.
Next one is anaphora, and that's when you repeat the beginning words in phrases or clauses or sentences. So everyone remembers this one. I won't read it out, but it's Winston Churchill from May 1940. His speech to Parliament after the defeat of the British and the French in France. And he was sort of rallying the nation behind him, and he used this anaphora where he starts each sentence with we shall, we shall, we shall. It's very powerful, it's repetitive, so it gets people to remember it.
Like poetry in some respects.
Like what?
Similar to poetry.
Yeah, some poetry does that, yeah. And Donald Trump did the same thing. He used the word we several times in this speech. It was in his speech in 2017 in Poland. And he used the word we throughout that to tie those together, make that effective, to start at the beginning of those sentences.
So two senior stir fries.
On one.
And it's also used in advertising. Repeating open a Coke, open happiness, real ingredients, real taste, and your music, your podcast, your way.
I think that might be here, actually.
So it's used repetitively that way. Next one is assonance. Now, this is a rhyme, but not a rhyme at the end of the sentence, but an internal rhyme. So when words rhyme internally, that they just rhyme in the sentences. So early bird catches the worm. So early bird and worm rhyme with each other. Honesty is the best policy, honesty and best. Let the cat out of the bag, cat and bag. A stitch in time, stitch in and time saves 9. And the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so squeaky wheel and grease all rhyme. And those types of phrases are very memorable, so you've all heard these and people remember them. Charlton Heston used that as well in his speech. He said in that same spirit, I'm asking you to disavow cultural correctness with massive disobedience, authority, social directives, and onerous laws that weaken personal freedom. So the O sound in all those words. They all have that O sound in those words tied together. So it was very, very effective.
I've never had that experience. It's quite a subtle one. Like a lot of people wouldn't notice it happening, you know?
Yeah, but they don't notice it, but psychologically it makes it more memorable and persuasive. So I think we need to adopt these more in our party, definitely.
I agree. I need to start adopting them on social media.
And in advertising, now Stouffer's makes real fast, real mean, lean cuisine. So the real and mean and lean rhyme, and it beeps as it sweeps, as it cleans. Hoover vacuum cleaners. So beeps, sweeps, and cleans all rhyme with each other. Epistrophe is another one. So you think, we talked about an aphra, the Winston Churchill one. This is just the opposite. Is where you use the same word or phrase at the end of the end of the sentence or clause. So in the King James Bible, there's a famous quote, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, and I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away the childish things. So the word child is repeated at the end of those clauses. And Frederick Douglass is pictured here, the famous American slave who was a writer and speaker. He said, to ensure good behavior, the slaveholder relies on the whip. To induce proper humility, he relies on the whip. To rebuke what he is pleased to term insolence, he relies on the whip. To supply the place of wages as an incentive to toil, he relies on the whip. So he uses that phrase, relies on the whip, at the end of each of those, which is epistrophe. And Ayn Rand used it in one of her quotes. She said, you can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. So the word reality is repeated at the end of each clause in this sentence. And in advertising, again, advertising agencies know how effective these are, so they use them in slogans for products. Choose to be the most beautiful, salon beautiful, the word beautiful is used there. The right thing says everything, thing is repeated. And an American one for Dr. Pepper, I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper, we're a pepper. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too, Dr. Pepper? Another one that's used quite regularly is epizeuxis. And it's used a lot in Shakespeare. I'll talk a bit about that later, but Shakespeare used hundreds of these in his plays. That's why they're so memorable. Reputation, reputation, reputation from Othello. And Winston Churchill said, never give in, never, 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 and nothing great or small, large or petty. Never again give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. And Margaret Thatcher said, if ever a nation has spent, and spent again, ours has. So repeating those words, spent, spent, and spent. Can anyone think of a recent example from Donald Trump?
Fight, fight, fight.
Fight, 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 yeah. So he used that spontaneously after the assassination attempt. And epizeuxics is used in advertising campaigns. This is an old one from America in the 1970s when it's with Libby's, Libby's, Libby's on the label, label, label. You will like it, like it, like it on the table, table, table. And the famous phrase, location, 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 is an example of epizeuxis. Polyptoton is when you repeat a word, a different form of the word based on the same root. So from the King James Bible, I've been a stranger in the strange land. So stranger and strange are based on the same root of the word. Ronald Reagan said, for 3 decades, we've sought to solve the problems of unemployment through government planning. And the more plans fail, the more planners plan. So using the word plan, different forms based on the word plan, that basic root of the word. And the famous quote from Lord Acton, who's pictured here, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And again, in advertising, Jif peanut butter, choosy mothers choose Jif. So choosy and choose are based on the same word. And the things you own end up owning you. The word own and owning are based on the same root of the word. Now, tricolon is a very effective one that's used quite a bit. It's when you use 3 elements in close succession that are very similar. So life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And Robert Menzies used this at the end of his famous Forgotten People radio address, where he used 2 of them together. And when you use it at the end of a speech, it's almost a signal that it's the end of the speech. So there's a lot of controversy about, how do you end a speech correctly, or how do people know your speech is ending? So he said, but what really happens to us will depend on how many people we have who are the great and sober and dynamic. So he's using great, sober, dynamic, middle class. The strivers, the planners, the ambitious ones. So strivers, planners, the ambitious ones. We shall destroy them at our peril. So he's using those 3 elements, 2 of them together at the end of his speech. Very powerful closing to the Forgotten People address delivered in 1941 by Robert Menzies. You can also use it comedically. The writer H.L. Mencken said, for every complex problem, there's a solution that is plain, simple, and wrong. So you use 3 elements, and then you use the 3rd one that doesn't match the 2, and it's called a comedic triple, where you set it up with the first 2, and then the last one doesn't match it. And the impact of figures of speech on your content. There's a famous book, or an author, Sister Miriam Joseph, who wrote a book about Shakespeare called The Trivium. Shakespeare's use to the arts of language, and she said, in reading Shakespeare's work chronologically, one notices that his language grows in ease, range, and mastery. In its capacity to be vivid, sudden, condensed, these qualities of Shakespeare's later style result in no small measure from his consummate skill in using the schemes of grammatical construction. So Shakespeare is full of these techniques, and that's why we repeat Shakespeare's language in everyday life. So, like I said, reputation, reputation, reputation earlier. That's from Othello. And a lot of the phrases we use, especially as metaphors and other schemes and tropes, we use every day. So basically, those are the 8 I covered, and I have 30 of them in my book, Speaking for Freedom. Tonight we covered 8 of these.
Did you bring 8 books?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I'll bring those out later, and this is the things I cover in the book and in my trainings is clear and persuasive writing, Lincoln, Menzies, George Orwell, storytelling, Ronald Reagan, Charlton Heston, modes of persuasion, Aristotle, creating connection, Solzhenitsyn, opening and closing a speech, stature, humor, H.L. Mencken, Churchill, and Reagan. So those are some of the things that I cover in my workshops in my book. And my book, Speaking for Freedom, it's I've sort of made a diagram of where it sits. It's the connection between freedom, persuasion, and Western civilization. Some of the things I do: speech writing, copywriting, content writing, editing, speaking, and training. And those are some of the speakers that I actually cover in the book. Any questions?
I've heard that Cicero is big on oratory. Have you read him? Has he influenced you?
I've read some of them, yeah. Yeah, I know. Cicero was one of the Greek senator, and he had a big impact on speaking and writing in the Roman Empire. And he sort of picked up on the ancient Greeks and carried it forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Are you prepared to make this presentation publicly accessible? Because I ignored all of my English class that touched on this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I can send the slides. Anybody that wants the slides, just go to, and I have the books. I have a few copies of the book tonight. If you want to purchase, you can buy it on Amazon. But I'll send the slides to anybody that wants the slides. Yeah.
If you had to write, for example, a piece or an article or blog, something, you would use some of these techniques, but you run the risk of, if you overload it, you run the risk of not making a point and making a mess up. So if you have to put a number or balance of 10, 20%, how often would you use them as part of one piece of a 50-minute read?
Yeah, it really depends. Like in a blog, I'd use it sparingly.
Yeah.
Like you might want to use it in the title, the headline, the subheadings, maybe a bit in the text. But metaphors are really something you could use quite a bit, metaphors. But some of the language techniques are a bit, you want to sprinkle it in. The more formal the speech, like let's say you're a politician like Ronald Reagan or Margaret Thatcher, they'll use it a lot more. It's more used in speeches versus written text.
Yeah.
I mean, it's used in poetry. Poetry is basically all figures of speech.
Yeah.
But a blog, I would use it sparingly.
Yeah, when you need to convey the message.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cheers.
How would you rate the political landscape in Australia in regards to this moment? Like, for example, Anthony Albanese. You must cringe when you see him on TV.
Yeah, these are part of the techniques. These are some of the techniques that I think are important. But other parts are storytelling, like actually telling stories. And I don't think any of the politicians in Australia are very good at it at all. So, yeah.
I'd rather stick a needle there right back in.
Yeah, whatever party, it's very. I think they don't really understand, especially things like humor. Very few people were good at humor.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan was very good at humor.
Yeah, Reagan and yeah, definitely. Yeah, in the chapter of my book on humor, half of the examples are from Reagan actually. So, yeah.
So not wanting to put people on, get their back up, but do you always look at all of the Libertarian Party slogans and things like that and go, oh, I would have done it this way? Or when you're looking at all of our core flutes here, would you?
I would. They're good, but I would have maybe thought about it a bit more. Mm-hmm. Like the one I liked was a few years ago was more freedom, less government, because that's antithesis. It's one of the things that I didn't talk about it tonight, but it's where you have two opposite things. Yeah. It's very effective. Yeah. More freedom, less government. Yeah, that's called antithesis. But I think it would be good if we used them more and incorporated more in our speeches, because even a lot of the political consultants that you can pay, they don't even know they don't know all this.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting you pick up on that one actually, because that's the only slogan that if I've worn that T-shirt that I've still got, that people have commented on it and they've seen that slogan on the back. I've had numerous people comment on it, even though I know we probably don't like it for various reasons, but it's very noticeable.
Yeah. So something like that is effective. Yeah.
We can look back on these things now and give them labels on how they. But how many of these people actually knew those techniques and put them into effect, or was it just an accident?
A talent.
Speechwriters help them, but I know Margaret Thatcher wrote her own speeches. Reagan wrote his own speeches up until he became president, but then he had assistants. A lot of people use them subconsciously, but the more you know them consciously, the more effective you'll use them. A lot of them are found Martin Luther King Jr., he used a lot, But many are found in the Bible, the King James Bible specifically, because the language was kept that way. So someone like him would use them almost subconsciously, because people that grew up, let's say, in the Baptist church or something, they'd hear that every Sunday. They hear this type of language because it's based, a lot of it is found in the King James Bible. So, but like I said, the more you know consciously, the better you'll be. Yeah.
If you had to, we put the techniques to the side for a second, and if you have to choose between more common day-to-day language and sentiment and everything instead of going for something more obscure, where would you strike the balance in terms of conveying a message? Would you try to sprinkle it with more sophisticated words for the sake of appearing a little bit higher intellectually, or would you?
It really depends on it depends on the context.
Right.
Like a campaign slogan, I definitely try to use one of these.
Yeah.
For a blog, like I said, I wouldn't use as many for a speech, especially a formal speech, like someone giving their maiden speech in Parliament, or like in America, the State of the Union address. I would definitely use a lot of them. So.
Yes. Even if the people like say, I didn't get half of this.
The people get it, but it actually simplifies it and makes it easier to understand, because it repeats things. It's actually.
Even if the synonyms are obscure, that's kind of like when I'm struggling.
It's not obscure. It's more like when I talked about repetition.
Yeah.
It more.
No, I get
yeah.
That's why I said the techniques aside. But if you have a Basque language, would you go for something simpler or something?
I go for simpler. Simpler. That's simpler. Yeah.
Something simple just down there. Dump and zero.
Yeah.
Or dump and zero and zero and dump.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, because it's like
Yeah, both dump and zero.
simple language, like Reagan, tear down this wall. It was very simple. And Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, like 80% of the words are one syllable if you read it. So it's very simple language. And if you look at something like the King James Bible, it's also very simple language. But it uses these techniques, but very simple 1-2 syllable words versus 3 to 4 syllable words.
Or even defend your home and family, castle law, libertarian. That's a good one.
I think these are good. I mean, maybe I think about them some more, but I think that they're pretty effective. Yeah.
It's funny because looking at the saying defend your home, I'm pretty sure I've heard the phrase like your home is your home before in some sort of insurance advertising. Like it rings a bell, and it's also applicable because it's your home. Also is your home, as in like,
your home is your castle. So
if you have a guy standing at the side of the window, it's like, well, it's your home.
Yeah.
I feel like that's someone else's advertising campaign. It's just reminding me of just looking at it like.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's double A and I, or it's Shannon's insurance.
I'm not too sure of the background, but I don't know if you remember in the 70s the Labor campaign against Menzies, it's time.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah.
You recall that?
Yeah, it's time. That's very simple.
They
Yeah.
had a jingle, they had before even do they know it's Christmas and
Yeah.
They had the choir going in the 70s, and it was.
And another thing is today is the 50th anniversary of the dismissal.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this.
And may God save the Queen, because nothing will save the Governor General.
Famous words.
That's diacopy. That's another technique that I taught. I know. It's one of the
I
things.
reckon that was typical.
That was a
That
technique.
did come off from someone's head.
That's the same technique as when you say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But I'm not talking about that one tonight. So.
There was another campaign in the early 90s with Jeff Kennett, the Guilty Party. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I wasn't in Australia. No.
The Guilty Party? It was when the Labor government drove the economy into the ground.
Oh, okay.
Everyone was out of jobs. It was terrible. When was that? Just absolute recession.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s. And Kennett came in with the whole thing, and it was all the pictures of the Labor people, and it was bars coming down.
Okay.
The Guilty Party, and it was like, pitchforks and torches,
Yeah.
That's all the Guilty Party. That's all.
So what I might do now, I'm gonna take a break, but I have a quiz based upon what we learned tonight. And the winner of the quiz wins a free book. But I'm gonna have my dinner first. Thank you.
So how would you like to do this? Would you like me to speak?
No, go ahead and speak, yeah.
And after, okay.
Should we stop recording?
If you want, yeah.
Should we stop recording? If you want. It doesn't really matter. This doesn't need to be recorded. It doesn't matter either way.